We will now be taking a look at our subsequent repertoire from Chapter 5 of Piano for the Developing Musician. Okay, so we've already gone through this in class, but I wanted to go over it just in case anyone missed class or had any additional questions on this. Notice the key signature, 1 flat. Tells us we're either in F major or D minor. If we look at the music though, the left hand starts with a D, A, F, that spells a D minor chord, and the piece ends on a D, indicating that we are probably in D minor. There's also a few other clues. You'll see a C sharp here, C sharp, A, G, well that's an A7 in first inversion. That would be the 5 chord, the dominant chord in the key of D minor. So this is most definitely in the key of D minor. First step I'd like you to do is to analyze the harmony. We've already done this together, but just to go over it. We could analyze a chord here if we wanted to, A, D, F. That definitely spells a D minor chord. I'd like you to do both lead sheet symbols and harmonic analysis, Roman numeral analysis. So if we're doing Roman numeral analysis, you'll write D minor, colon, or you could do that in lowercase, doesn't matter. Tells us that we're in the key of D minor. I'll write D, M-I-N here. Here, we've got a D minor chord. That would be lowercase 1, minor 1 chord in root position. That doesn't change for that whole system. So that's all we have to write for that. If we look at the next system here, D, F sharp, C. If I build a chord here, D, F sharp, C, okay, we can assume that the 5th is missing, the 5th is omitted. So now if we have D, F sharp, A, C, what does that spell? We have a major triad. D, F sharp, A is a major triad because D to A is a major third and F sharp to A is a minor third, major triad. And we also have a 7th. What kind of 7th do we have? That's a D to a C natural. Well, C natural is a whole step lower than the octave above D. And I'll show you what that looks like on the piano. So if you look at that chord, for those of us who are not quite confident with our chord reading skills, let me show you what that looks like. So D, F sharp, that's a major third because 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps is a major third. F sharp to A is a minor third. 1, 2, 3 half steps, so it's a minor third. That's a major triad. Here's the octave, all right, a perfect octave. If I lower the top note down a half step, that's the interval of a major 7th. That's how I like to determine major 7th. It's a lot easier this way than counting up from the bottom. So major 7th, if I go down an additional half step with the top note, that's a minor 7th because now it's a whole step below the octave. So octave, major 7th, minor 7th. If I have a major triad and I add a minor 7th above that, that's a major minor 7. Because it's a major triad plus a minor 7, major minor. That's where the name comes from. Also known as just a 7. So we'll just call this a D7. But there's something else to consider about this chord. Well, D7 isn't really in the key of D minor because, well, D minor doesn't have an F sharp, does it? So that means this is what we call a borrowed chord. Some people call it an applied chord. Okay. So it's a dominant form of the 7 chord, major minor 7. So we can assume that this is functioning as a secondary dominant. Well, secondary dominant to what? To figure this out, all we need to do is to go down a 5th from the root of the chord. The root of the chord is a D. We go down a 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, G. So D7 wants to go to G. And you can hear that. D wants to go to G. D wants to go to G. 5, 1, 5, 1. In the key of D minor, though, what Roman numeral is G? Let's figure it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the 4th scale degree. That means that this D7 can be notated as the 5 of 4. Since we're in G minor, 5 of 4. Okay? Let's take a look at that in the music. For those of you who know your theory very well, feel free to skip through these sections and do it on your own. But I want to make sure that I'm going slow enough for anyone who may not understand. So in this chord, I will write 5 of 4 thusly. So this is a 5/7 of 4. And it's going to be a lowercase 4 because in the key of D minor, the 4 chord is minor with the B flat. That's the third. That's the same chord here. I don't need to write it again. And then, where do you think we go? Well, we were 5/7 of 4. Well, we of course end up on 4. D, G, and B flat spells the 4 chord, okay, root being G. What part of the chord's in the bass? Well, the 5th is in the bass because G is the root, B flat's the 3rd, D is the 5th. So this means we are in second inversion since the 5th is in the bass. How do we notate that? 4, 6, 4. Okay, 4, 6, 4. Reason being, the bass note's a D, the 5th of the chord. The root is a 4th above the bass note, and the 3rd is a 6th above the bass note, hence the 6, 4. So here, let's go on. Just one note over here. We could analyze this if we want. If you want to analyze this, we would still probably analyze it as a 4 chord. Let's look at the next system here. Okay, C sharp, G, A. What does that spell? What is the root of the chord? To determine the root of the chord, we can build this up. I see that I've got an E here. I'm taking that from the right hand melody here. E, I've got a G here, and I've got an A here. Notice, E is a third above C sharp, G is a third above E, but A is not a third above G, it's a second. Therefore, we know the root of the chord is A. Because if we move this A down to the bass position, look what happens. We have a beautiful 7th chord, A, C sharp, E, G. So that's that trick I showed you in class, but that's what it looks like again. So this chord is in first inversion because C sharp is the third of the chord. It's an A chord. Well, what is A in the key of D minor? Well, we have D, E, F, G, A. A is the dominant, the 5 chord. So this is exactly what that is, a 5/7 chord. But of course it's in first inversion, so we wouldn't write 7, would we? No. What is the Roman numeral figured bass for the 7? Say it louder. Just kidding. 6/5. Okay? And it looks just like that. If you look at it, look, C sharp, a 5th above C sharp is G, hence the 5. A 6th above C sharp is A, hence the 6. Then we return to a D minor chord on bar 11, right over here. So that's going to be a lowercase 1 chord. End of the measure, end of the system rather, what is this? That's right. We go back to 5/6/5. Look at the last system here. Last system, 5/6/5 still. We don't need to write that in. In the first ending, we have a minor 1 chord. In the second ending, it stays at 5/6/5. And back to the minor 1 at the very end. Fingering. This is very straightforward. Left hand, well, that's just root position 1 chord. So that's going to be 5, 1, 3, 1, just like that. And it's going to stay that way for the entire system. Second system, 5, 1, 3, 1 again. Same thing. When you get to the third bar here of this system, don't forget there's a B flat. 5, 1, 2, 1. On the third system, when we have the 5/6/5 chord, this will be a 5, 1, 2, 1. Since that G is just a step below the A, second figure makes the most sense. It returns to 5, 1, 3, 1. End of the system, 5, 1, 2, 1, since it's the 5/6/5 again. And that's literally the fingering. It just alternates, just like that. Okay. Next, let's take a look at this melody. The melody actually begins on the left hand right over here. It doesn't actually begin on the right hand here. Okay? The left hand plays the first melodic note. What count does it come on? Well, if we look at this, our time signature is 2-4. Means there are 2 beats in a measure and a quarter note gets the beat. If we count backwards, this would be the count and, this would be 2, and this would be and. And of course 1 isn't written here, so it really starts on the and of beat 1, and at the first beat. So if we're counting, this will be 1 and 2 and 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 1, and so on and so forth. You want to really make sure you understand the rhythms by counting. Notice the ties that we have. 1 and tie and 1. If we look at the first and second ending, simple rhythm here, but let's go over it anyways. This is a dotted eighth. If we subdivide that into 16ths, that's going to be counted 1 E and A, 2 and, or even 2 E and if you need to keep subdividing. So 1 E and A, 2 and 1 and 2 and, or 1 E and A, 2 E and A, 1 and 2 and, just like that. So now I'm going to be playing hands alone as a demonstration on this, and then I will be playing hands together. This way you will be able to refer to the this video as needed. All right. Let me get in position here. Okay. Let's see. That's good. I think you can see all the notes pretty clearly here. All right. So let's do, I'll do one hand at a time. We'll start with the left hand. 1 and 2 and D minor. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1. Now I'm going to go to the 5 of 4, 5, 7 of 4. 1 and 2 and 1. Now to the 4 chord, which is G minor. 1 and 2 and 1. Now the 5, 6, 5. 1 and 2 and 1. Back to the 1 chord, D minor. 1 and 2 and 1. Back to the 5, 6, 5, A6, A7. 1 and 2 and 1. Back to the D minor chord. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. That's the left hand. Minus the very first melody note. Here's the melody. Left hand plays the first note. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. Now this is going to be D minor arpeggio, so I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 5 like that. And 1, 1, 2, and measure 5 and 2 G minor and 2 and 1, and see how this is G minor pentachord position right there on measure 5. Okay, so always looking for these patterns. On the end of the system, measure 8, we go to second finger on G. 2, 3, 4, 3, 1. Now fourth finger on A. 4, 3, 3, 2. See? We stay in this position. And 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 first ending. 1 E and a 2 and 1. Then we repeat. On the very ending, second ending, we just do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Notice the staccato. So now I'm going to play it hands together. Feel free to slow this down. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 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 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and that's it. This piece does go faster. The music notates it as a lively, so I'll play it one time up at a tempo which I think would be appropriate for this. I'll also be adding a bit more dynamics and a bit more expression. Keep in mind, you are the artist. You get to make your choices on how to play it and interpret it. 2